Hey everybody. So we got some big news coming out of Israel today. Just a few hours ago, Israeli Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman resigned from his post as Defense Minister. Now, understand what the possible implications are. This means that Avigdor Lieberman and his party are most probably leaving the governing coalition of Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, leaving Netanyahu with a 61-seat majority of the 120-seat Knesset parliament, which means that any vote Prime Minister Netanyahu wants his government to pass, he needs all 61 members of his ruling coalition to be present to vote and be on board to vote. Not a simple government to rule. So basically, the question is, are we going now into new elections in Israel because of this resigning of the Israeli defense minister? Now, before we get into those implications, please understand something. Please understand something. Most Israelis are livid that the current Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not done enough to stop the constant rocket fire and terror coming from Gaza. Defense Minister Lieberman, past Defense Minister Lieberman, he was the defense minister. He was in charge of the army, and even though he is saying that he is resigning because of the inaction of the Israeli government under the Prime Minister Netanyahu against the Gaza terror to stop it, he is an opportunist. He knows the government was going to fall at some point in time over the next year. He knows Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu might have called for new elections himself within the next few months, and he is an opportunist. How do we know he's an opportunist? Well, everyone here in Israel remembers that Avigdor Lieberman, past Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman, one of his campaign promises before the last election was that if he is appointed Defense Minister of Israel, then he would take out the leader of Hamas within 48 hours. That was a campaign promise of him, showing how tough he's going to be with the terrorists, that the head terrorist of Hamas will be dead within 48 hours of him being appointed defense minister. And the Israeli public remembers this and will remember this. So even though right now he's saying he is resigning because he disagrees with how Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has dealt with the Gaza situation, you have to look at this as an opportunist and not that he is so pure and that he would have done things so much differently if he would have been Prime Minister. He's just taking advantage to prop himself up before potential elections so he could be looked at once again as a hawk, even though while he was defense minister, he did not come out looking like he was a hawk. All right? That has to do with the resignation of the defense minister. And again, most of the Israeli public is livid that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not done enough to stop the terror from Gaza. Now, let's put things in perspective. I believe in perspective. While one can get angry at any pinpoint of information or pinpoint in time, we have to have perspective. What's the perspective? The perspective is, folks, that before the summer of 2005, when Israel left the Gaza Strip, expelled all the Jewish residents of the Gaza Strip, destroyed all the Jewish communities in the Gaza Strip in order to try to prove to the world, here, there's going to be a border between us, we're going to be separated, we're not going to have any friction between us, let them try to build up their own state, we are out of here in order to try to make peace. And me and my friends and my fellow Land of Israel activists were screaming to the heavens, don't you dare leave Gaza. Don't you dare destroy Jewish communities. Don't you dare expel Jews from Gaza. That will make the situation worse. We're going to have rocket fire from Gaza on the rest of the country. And people didn't want to listen to us. fellow Israelis and the Israeli government decided, no, this is going to bring peace by expelling the Jews out of Gaza and by destroying Jewish communities and stopping the friction between Jews and the Muslims in the Gaza Strip. Even though we were saying it was clear as day that it would become a terror state and they would use Gaza to fight us and destroy us and shoot rockets against us from there. Unfortunately, we were proven right. The other thing the left sold the state of Israel at the time was, oh yes, by us pulling out, then we're going to have a defined border that if the Muslims in Gaza try to shoot at us, we're going to have the full support of the international community to destroy them and stop them from shooting rockets at us. And as you can see, we have over 20,000 rockets shot at Israel from Gaza since they started in 2002. 20,000 rockets. And since we left Gaza in 2005, the international community has never given us legitimacy to attack Gaza and stop them from attacking us. The situation has just gotten worse. The international community now complains about a humanitarian crisis and blames Israel for a humanitarian crisis, even though we're not in Gaza. We're not responsible for Gaza. Hamas is in charge in Gaza. And even though they killed their own Palestinian Authority co-people. So, not only did Israel leaving the Gaza Strip make the situation more dangerous by allowing terror to grow there, it also took away and made it harder for Israel to have the international legitimacy to fight back and destroy the terrorists and the terror against us. And that is the situation that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu inherited, and during 8 years of Obama was anti-Israel, withholding ammunition and munitions from Israel during the 2014 Gaza war. Obama shut down flights to Ben Gurion, basically shutting down Ben Gurion. So Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu ruled for 8 years during Obama with his hands tied behind his back, not able to do much with Obama in office. And now I come to the crux of the issue today. Because I believe Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is missing out on a fabulous opportunity to strengthen Israel. Never before have we had a president of the United States who was so supportive of Israel. And 2 years have already passed. Those are 2 years that rockets have been fired from us, and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has not taken advantage of having the most supportive president in the White House to destroy Hamas, to destroy Hezbollah, to get rid of the threats that Iran has against us. He has wasted 2 years, and the situation has just gotten worse. Now Russia is in cahoots with Iran. Now Russia is in cahoots that they would help Iran if Israel does anything in Lebanon. The situation is just getting worse. And that's just about the security situation. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also wasted 2 years in not building enough in Judea and Samaria. Folks, do you want to know why it's important for Jews to live and build as much as possible in Judea and Samaria? Because by us, where we live, it becomes safer for the Arabs. The economy becomes better for our Arab Muslim neighbors. Security is better. The more people Jews who live in a place, there's more safety for the Arab Muslims around us who want to live in peace. And it allows the Israeli army more leeway to be able to provide security for everyone. Do you know the only difference between a Muslim Arab who lives as an Israeli citizen in Israel and a Muslim Arab who lives in Judea and Samaria and Gaza? Is that the ones who live in Israel are Israeli citizens and they are able to prosper and have a prosperous life. They both call themselves Palestinians, right? Some of them even want to destroy Israel even though they're Israeli citizens. But while they are Israeli citizens, they could be police officers, they could be lawyers, they could be Supreme Court justices, they could be politicians in the Israeli Knesset. They can have jobs, they can run businesses, they could be very rich, they could prosper. Whereas if that same Arab Muslim's cousin who lives in Judea and Samaria or Gaza, he is not allowed the freedom to prosper, and he is living under the oppression and persecution of either the Palestinian Authority or Hamas. The only difference between an Arab Muslim who lives as an Israeli citizen in Israel and those who live under Palestinian Authority or Hamas is that those who live as Israeli citizens are safer and have more of a chance of prosperity in their lives. So, the way to bring peace is for Jews to build more in Judea and Samaria, for Jews to build in Gaza, for Israel to apply full sovereignty and law so that we can protect not only the Jews, but also the Muslims from their own brothers who were persecuting them and oppressing them and using them as pawns to destroy Israel. And Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did not use these 2 years of President Trump to build as much as possible. And now, there's only 2 years left. This government might fall, the most right-wing government Israel had. The next government, we don't know how good it's going to be. One of the best and most productive ministers in this government was the Justice Minister Ayelet Shaked of the Jewish Home Party, who made unbelievable changes as much as possible to the justice system, where there is a deep state of left people who try to stop everything that the right-wing government tries to do to protect Israel. This is a justice system that works in cahoots with the left ideologues in the media to weaken Israel, assist the terrorists, and stop Israel from protecting itself and building. And this Justice Minister, Ayelet Shaked, tried to do as much as possible under the constraints she was in. And we do not know if we will have such a justice minister again. So we want her to be as long as possible the justice minister, to make even more changes while she can. And here, going to new elections, we do not know what's going to be. We do not know if we go to new elections, which we probably will be. We do not know what the next government is going to be. We do not know who will be the prime minister. We do not know who the coalition partners are going to be. Probably not as good as this one. Because in order to make a majority coalition of 61, sometimes you have to bring in partners who are not as good. In this government, there was the Kulanu party, which acted as a shield to protect the justice system. It did not allow for laws to be passed that would have made the necessary changes that the justice minister really needed to make. So she had to make other changes without passing laws, not as good or as changing to really make the difference. So we do not know. And the fear is that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu might have been missing this opportunity of having a President Trump in office. You know what? We don't know how long President Trump is going to last as president either. He might be another 2 years. He might be another 6 years. We don't know. But here has been an opportunity for Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to use having the most supportive president in the White House ever. And he has not built like he should have built. He has not used the opportunity to destroy our enemies like he should have. And that is the disappointment with these changes and potential of new elections right now. Putting all that aside, everyone understand, Israel, we're going to survive. We're going to survive and we're going to thrive. Why? Because we value life. And also because the God of Israel looks after us. We're a miraculous people. We shouldn't exist at all. We should have been wiped off the map generation after generation after generation. The only reason we still survive is because there's a God that watches over us. It's that simple. So one way, shape, or form, whatever the geopolitical challenges that come upon us, even within our own people here in Israel, whatever challenges come upon us, whether Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is Prime Minister or not, we will survive. We have a strong army. We have God on our side. We will defend ourselves. But still, it is a disappointment to see a potentially good government fall and our own Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu not having taken full advantage of the opportunity, having President Trump in office, who is supportive of Israel, who is sympathetic to Israel, to destroy our enemies as much as possible and to build as much as possible to bring true peaceful relations here. Because the only true peaceful situation we will have in Jews and Muslims living peacefully is when Israel applies full sovereignty to Judea, Samaria, and Gaza, where the Muslims know that they were not getting rid of us, where Jews take full sovereignty over the Temple Mount, where Jews are allowed to pray, and Muslims get the message they are no longer have power over us. If they want to be equals with us, they can be equals with us. We will give them that. If they want to continue to use their power structure of Islam and make anyone who's not Muslim second-class citizens and not enjoy freedom of religion like we should, there will not be peace. That is appeasing the Muslim world. That is enabling them to continue their terror and intolerance against all of us. So folks, that is the breaking news update right now on the political front in Israel. Everything's up in the air. No clue what's going to be. No clue if there will be new elections. No clue if other parties are going to leave the government. No clue if this is going to spur Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to take more action against Gaza because his own voter base is livid against him, furious that he hasn't done more to stop the terror against Gaza. If you guys want to understand why Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu probably is not taking action right now in Gaza, watch my video yesterday with Caroline Glick. She gives a phenomenal analysis. I will post the link in this post. Watch it. Watch every minute of it. She gives a fabulous analysis of the dangerous situation, the geopolitical and security situation that Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to make decisions under and the constraints he is under. Basically that Iran is behind it all and that if Israel goes to war, it has to not just go after Gaza, it has to go after Iranian proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon, a two-front war against Iran, that Russia is also standing with Iran. Very dangerous situation. That's what Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is up against, which is probably why he hasn't done anything yet against Gaza, forcibly to stop it. But again, his own voter base, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's own voter base, is furious at him that he has allowed, that he continues to appease the terror and keep on making these ceasefires, knowing that they're going to continue, they're going to come back, and it's just going to get worse and worse and worse. So the day will come where we will have this two-front war. It's not a question of if, it's a question of when, and who is going to be the government at the time. In the meantime, that's the update. Everything's going to be good, folks. There's just going to be painful before we get the good. And that's my optimism and my realistic, also, it's not just an optimism, it's a realistic optimism based on everything I know and everything I explain. That's the update. Pray, stand with Israel, and help me spread the truth and share the truth. Share the video. And until the next update, folks, thanks for watching. Shalom from the Jewish ancestral homeland and the Jewish capital since King David's time, Jerusalem. Shalom.